That one Jamshed had set up this plant, which was Jamshedji Tata, the founder. Another Jamshed and Jamshed Irani resurrected the plant. If Tata Steel was supposed to just prepare scrap rails, it would earn much more money than supplying rails to the railways. You would be given a salary that that you were drawing, the basic salary that you were drawing on the day that you opted for the scheme, which would be continued to be paid up to the age of 60 when you would have normally retired, even though you did not serve the company. Saying in Gujarati to his colleagues that, after managing director Gadero, which means our MD is a bloody ass. Our, shall I say, per capita steel production compared to what was the standard worldwide was 1/10 of what the world had achieved in good companies and good plants in the US, for example.
Welcome viewers to yet another episode of Tata Katha Season 3, wherein we are reviewing this lovely book called Tata Living by Values by Mr. Don Dungaji. Mr. Don Dungaji, as I mentioned in the first episode, is a Tata veteran, having worked with the Tata Group for 42 years and being associated with them now for 56 years. Mr. Dungaji is perhaps one of those rare people who has worked directly with Mr. J.R.D. Tata. Mr. Dungaji, welcome to the second episode.
Thank you very much, Girish. Lovely to be here again.
Thank you, sir. The second episode, sir, is on the Tata Way, on which you have written extensively in your magnificent book. Now, I have, of course, read the entire book, and I would like to ask you a few questions about certain episodes that you have mentioned in your book. Right. The first one being of an instance when Mr. J.R.D. Tata in a meeting clearly outlined that profits can wait, but the nation should take precedence over profits. Right. And you were there at the meeting. It will be helpful if you could take us through that meeting in its entirety, sir.
I must correct that. I have quoted my friend who had recently joined Tata's at that time, Mr. Viren Mehrotra, and in his words, I have recorded that incident. Sure. I was very much a part of Tata Steel at that time, but at this particular meeting, I wasn't present. But he has narrated a story which I felt was important for people to understand someone like J.R.D. Tata. So what had happened was that we had a rail mill in Jamshedpur, which made rails on which, as you know, for the railways. It was an era of price control. And the Joint Plant Committee, which was a government body, they used to not only fix prices for steel products, but even to whom you could sell. So it was more like a rationing of quota of giving so much to this person, so much to that person, and companies or whatever, in terms of total control on steel, stifling control. Now, we were the only rail makers in India at that time. Bhilai came up a little later. But we had supplied rails to railways throughout, from the time that we started making rails. We also made what are the railway wheels. It was called wheel, tire, and axle plant. So the railway wheels were also made by us at that time. I was fortunate to belong to an era where I could see the rail manufacturer as well as the manufacturer of the wheel tires and axles, as they were called. So there came a time when, because of the price control, a scrapped rail fetched more money than the new rail at which we would price it, which was allowed to be priced. So there was a difference of 200 rupees. If you were to break that rail, if Tata Steel was supposed to just prepare scrap rails, it would earn much more money than supplying rails to the railways. So the three of my colleagues, Viren Mehrotra, Sharad Gupta, and Naren Dhiman, they were the people who had done this study, and they had put up a note saying, this is the situation, and we should close down the rail mill. Because it's not economical or remunerative for the company to continue to make rails. So that is the time that J.R.D. Tata, when he saw that note, he said, this is pure economics. This is not what Tatas do. We are interested in seeing what is good for the country. And if we stop making rails, you will have to import rails. Bhilai had just started. and we will waste foreign exchange, which was extremely scarce at that time. So we cannot allow the railways to sort of stop just because they don't have rails. And no railway would deliberately rip off a rail and sell it as a scrap to earn money. So he's outlined the Tata philosophy that serving the country was far more important than making profit. And Viren Mehrotra says that it was the best lesson that he learned in his life. And then JRD didn't just ignore the company. We didn't continue to. He said, you should make a representation to government and get prices revised, at least to cover the cost of the rails. And in terms of efficiency, we were an outdated plant. You should do everything to become as efficient as Bhilai, which was a fairly new plant at that time. So he balanced the two interests, but he never stopped making rails because India needed rails. That is the instance that you're referring to, and I have quoted in my book.
Right, sir. Another episode that you have mentioned about is a very thoughtful, elaborate severance package, which was designed by Tata Steel, the Tisco. Since you have been very closely associated with that steel business of the Tatas, could you please take us through that instance?
This was in the time of Jamshed Irani. 1991, liberalization, as you know, took place. And we were, by that time, we were almost an outdated plant in Jamshedpur. I used to mention, I had once mentioned publicly to Jamshed Irani when he was the chief guest, that one Jamshed had set up this plant, which was Jamshedji Tata, the founder. Another Jamshed and Jamshed Irani resurrected the plant in a way, because we modernized. So at that time in 1991, shall I say, per capita steel production compared to what was the standard worldwide was 1/10 of what the world had achieved in good companies and good plants in the US, for example. So we couldn't compete when the liberalized economy opened the doors to competition. We were nowhere there. And not only us, any steel producer in India was nowhere capable. And we were being the oldest, we were really in many ways outdated. Now, to improve that situation and to get out of it, unless the company was willing to go under, it was important to reduce manpower. And in Tata Steel, I call it the Brahmin of the group because nowhere is so much passion and romance and attachment to the founder and to the group is as visible as it is in Tata Steel and in Jamshedpur. I was very lucky that I cut my professional teeth, as it were, in Tata Steel. So something had to be done. No union would allow one person to go, and there were third generation, fourth generation employees in Tata Steel. You just can't get rid of people. So Jamshed Irani created an employee separation package, which looked more like fiction than fact, but it was implemented in Tata Steel. So it was around 1995. And this package was offered to people who wanted to voluntarily retire. The company, of course, kept in its power the decision whether to allow that person to retire or not, because we didn't want to lose precious assets. In fact, one whole division, Central Engineering and Development Division, in which I had many friends and which was the pride of the company, had to be closed down because you could get those services from consultants. It was not necessary to continue to have so many people working in the engineering. So the scheme that was announced, which is almost an unbelievable scheme, the voluntary retirement package said that those who volunteer to retire, it's called employee separation scheme. It's not called the voluntary retirement package. And those who wanted to leave the company, if they were residents of Jamshedpur, they would be allowed to remain in the houses, which was all company quarters, for 3 years, after which, of course, you expected them to move out. And the medical facilities, for example, that the company provided in Jamshedpur would be continued to be provided to them throughout their life, as it were. And the severance package was extremely generous. For example, if you were less than 40 years old, and this is where it sounds more like fiction than fact, you would be given a salary that you were drawing, the basic salary that you were drawing on the day that you opted for the scheme, which would be continued to be paid up to the age of 60 when you would have normally retired, even though you did not serve the company. So the person, if he got another job or started a business, he had two incomes. Obviously, nobody is just going to sit at home, but he had two incomes. Second was that if you are more than 40, depending on your age, if you're close to retirement, then you got 25%, 20% to 30% more than what you were drawing on that day. And that was ensured till you retired up to the age of 60. So nobody was left in the lurch. So the fact was that salaries became frozen for the group company. It made economic sense with people who understood the scheme later. That you didn't have to give increases, no pension schemes, nothing had to be done. All that you had to do was to make sure that you took care of yourself and you took care of your people. And that's how, over a period of time, we spent, I think, close to 300 or 400 crores. I don't remember the exact figure, over a period of time to pay those and service the needs of those who no longer serve Tata Steel.
Quite a sum, sir, at that point of time.
It was not at one shot. It was over a period of time.
Of course.
Yeah, sure. It was over a period of long time. And that's how today, I think around 40,000 people produce 15 million tons of steel. That time, 70,000 people produced maybe 2 million tons of steel.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how Tata Steel modernized itself, and it's one of the top leading steel companies in the world today, one of the top 10. So that was the kind of service. There are many other things. For example, if a person wanted a loan to start a business, the company gave a loan up to 2 lakhs of rupees to that person who was leaving. It had its own terms and conditions, but a loan was made available. Children's education was taken care of. And in COVID, the same scheme, and in fact, an improved version of it for those frontline workers who had died, was again implemented. So it was not a 1995 package for the economic benefit of the company. The same philosophy in 2020, 25 years later, was carried out again during the COVID time. So those who lost their people. And if, for example, God forbid, if the person who was benefiting from that scheme, he passed away during those 10, 15, 20 years that were remaining in service for him, he was not forgotten. His wife got the same amount till he would have turned 60. So you can imagine what is the extent of caring for the people that happened. An interesting thing happened when I was addressing what is called, there is a division, or call it a company if you like, of Mahindra Group, where there were 11 directors of 11 businesses. There were 11 businesses headed by those 11 MDs, if I may call them that. And I was asked to address them at a particular place, in fact, in Mahindra Towers, and talk to them about Tata culture and philosophy, which I did. What happened was, where I narrated the story of the scheme, when I finished that, one of them said, "Sir, I want to tell you something." I said, "Please." He said, "My sister was an employee of the engineering division. She's married now. She's 59 years old. Last year to go, she had been in Tata Steel. And she's settled in Australia with her husband. But even today, on the 1st of every month, the Tata Steel check of her salary promised at that time is deposited in her India bank account every month." But that is the commitment. So as I said, Tata Steel served those who did not even serve Tata Steel.
Right. Very true. Sir, also in your book, you have called management as a spiritual pursuit.
Yes.
Now, the Tata way is in perfect harmony with such a thought.
Yes.
I wanted to know that in your long and illustrious career, have you come across certain instances wherein you were faced with decision-making dilemmas, and this thought of the mixture of spirituality of purpose and the Tata way helped you in making those decisions, which perhaps would have been quite critical, and you faced very strong dilemmas in terms of ethics, values, professional integrity?
Yes. Well, quite a few instances actually, but maybe I'll narrate just one or two. But let me explain why I called management a spiritual pursuit. Uh, it is like it's you can draw analogy with the Gita. Uh, the Kauravas and the Pandavas both had a purpose. Both had their own purpose, but one was supported by dharma, and other was pure karma. So the dharma side, which was the Pandava side in the epic, is karma with dharma, and I felt that the karma with dharma has been the Tata way of doing things, and I call it a spiritual pursuit because why do we talk of values? It is a part of a spiritual thing. It is not a part of a material world. Why do we talk of corporate governance? Why do we talk of ethical standards? Why do we talk of corporate social responsibility? Why do we talk of environment management, as it were? So these are all things which are demands on the conscience of man. If you just look at profit, none of this is really applicable because at any cost you would like to make profit. As someone said, success at any cost is like an unseasoned dish. It may satisfy your hunger, but it will not taste good. In Tatas, we are hungry for success, but that success must also taste good. And that is the reason I said that management, and this is what I taught my students in management institutes, that you have to go beyond. Business has a larger purpose than just making profit. So that's the reason I called it a spiritual pursuit. And I've given the 7 pillars there as to what makes it a spiritual pursuit. But the thing is important from the perspective of managing any business. I'm not saying you should not make profit. In that case, if you don't make profit, you won't survive to fulfill the larger purpose. Tachi Kiyuchi was the managing director of Mitsubishi Electronics, and he said that we don't run companies to earn profits. I'm quoting. He says we don't run companies to earn profits. We earn profits to run companies. Our companies must uh, our companies have to fit into the world, or why should they live at all? So the purpose of a company is to do good for the world. So that's a line from him, and I think this is very similar to what our philosophy is, that we have responsibilities to all stakeholders, and not just the shareholder or the owners of the company, and that's why I call it a spiritual pursuit. Coming to your second question about facing dilemmas and answering them the Tata way. And perhaps that's the reason I'm very proud of whatever I did, whatever I faced. I never compromised Tata standards. There were small instances or big instances. I'll give you maybe something not perhaps mentioned also. But, in competition, stainless steel was our prime product in Navsari. And to produce stainless steel, we had to import the raw material, which was hot rolled coils from abroad. Now, for me to get that material out of customs, and you know how difficult customs are or were in that time, it took us more than a month and a half. Competition got it out in 6 or 7 days, and you know what they did to get it out in 6 or 7 days. They rolled it, they spoiled the market, the prices would fall, and by the time we got our raw material, we were already facing a handicap. Because in Tata's, 1 kg of scrap leaving the plant would not be without excise duty paid on it. There are companies that I know of in my time where the computer system closed down randomly on 2 or 3 days in a month. Why did they do that? Because there was no record of what left the plant on that day. And then they made money selling it in cash or whatever it was. I won't mention names. We couldn't do that. So should I have done that? Was a question I wanted it. In the interest of the company, forget my own company. But asking the question the Tata way, is this the Tata way? Always prevented me from doing something like that. So that was one of the instances. Another instance I would like to tell you about, which I'll never forget, is that we used to roll a particular product. It's called a medium carbon steel. of a certain grade. I won't take you into the metallurgy part of it. But one of the end uses of that was the hair clips that ladies use. These hair clips. The little putty at the back, that little strip at the back, you think it's very simple and easy. It's not simple. It has to be controlled in thickness in terms of microns. It should not have burn. Otherwise, the lady would cut her finger. It has to retain that curve or the springiness. So it's not as easy or a simple product that you see when you see a hair clip. Thanks to the ladies in this world, we had in Bombay alone 150 tons a month market, 150 tons, which was catered to by two other people. One was Nagarjun Steel from the south, and Graham Firth was a Bombay-based company, and we from Navsari. We almost shared the market equally, 50 tons each to make it easy. Now, we were bleeding in Navsari when I was leading, literally. And I was asked, what happened was that one of the competitor at the same time had a substation burnout and the other fellow had a strike. Now, no material coming out of their factories reaching Bombay. And the whole 150-ton market opened up to us. And a product which was sold at about 18,000 rupees a ton, which commanded a premium because our product gave them a better yield in producing clips to the clip manufacturer of 2,000-3,000 rupees. Suddenly, now you have 150 tons to yourself. And then you say, this is a time to go for the kill. At least it will cover interest, if not depreciation. So my marketing chief comes to me. I'll tell you in Gujarati because it sounds better and everybody understands, but I'll translate it as well. He says, sir, this is the time to go for the kill. We can sell this product at 25,000. With a little effort, 26,000. So which was a very attractive proposition at that time. His job was to make profit. It sounded very logical because the opportunity was very much there. But I asked myself, is this the Tata way? And the answer was that this is not the Tata way. So I told my marketing chief, Sarosh Sanjana was his name. He was also a Parsi fellow. I told him, you get all the 150 tons. Make sure that we supply 150, but no increase in price. He said, what are you saying? You're losing an opportunity. I said, no. I'm telling you, do what you like. But no increase in price. He's passed away now, but he doesn't know that the marketing division was next to the CEO's office, which was my office. And as I was passing that way, he was tearing his hair and saying in Gujarati to his colleagues that, APRO managing director Gaderoj, which means our MD is a bloody ass. He doesn't know how to make use of an opportunity. I just smiled to myself and after my return. Now what happened was, a couple of months later, the market was flooded. Because the product of these two plants, which were waiting for dispatches, flooded the market. Now the clip manufacturer could buy it at 10, 12, 13,000 rupees a ton. Forget 18,000 rupees. The whole thing was available. So but what happened was that because of the call that we had taken following the Tata way, in that market, we did not reduce 1 rupee from our premium. We not only sold 50 tons, which was our regular supply, we sold 10 tons more, 60 tons at our price of 18,000 rupees a ton. So the same marketing manager, Sarosh, comes to me and says, sir, in this difficult market situation, we are holding the price line. He was taking great pride. I said, you're not holding the price line. It is the Tata way that is holding the price line. Had I followed what you wanted me to follow today, you would have been on your knees. Today, with a broad chest, you're able to tell me you are holding the price line. Because the customer knew that you could have exploited him when you could have. Now it was his turn to stand by us, and he stood by us. So there are many, which a couple of them I've recorded in the book as well.
Right, sir. Sir, also, there have been multiple instances when the group has been at the center of controversy. Yes. But that has neither diluted the Tata brand, nor has it diluted our affection for the Tata Group. Now, being a Tata veteran, can you tell us that in your assessment, what is it that makes the Tata Group come out of such situations far stronger?
Over a period of 154 years of its existence, There are bound to be controversies, whether it is prawn farming in Chilka or something in Bangladesh or moving out of Singur. There can be many reasons for it. I'm not saying that nobody for 150 years can live without some questions being asked. And what happens is that in all these cases, why I think Tatas come out better than anybody else is simply because of the people knowing the intent in what Tatas wanted to do in those areas. And wherever these controversies have been happened, in a criminal case, for example, what is one of the important considerations is what was the motive. In our case, what has been the intent of what Tatas wanted to do in these areas? They have always been something great. They have always been something positive. Uh, Politics, social pressures, many things can create trouble in these cases. The only ethical violation that I know really, and the way Ratan Tata handled it, was in Tata Finance in the year 2001, when the MD committed a fraud of 600-700 crores, which Harish Bhatt has written about in his book, The Tata Law. And I treat it as a case study when I teach and do the Tata Culture program. Other than that, wherever Tatas have been, the intent has always been greater than anything else. It has always been for the good of people, whether it created employment, whether it gave benefits to those areas in which they were created. It has always been supreme. So I think the public and all of us judge, what shall I say, judge may not be the good word, but the way we assess the Tata failures is because I think in our heart of hearts, we know that the intent of what Tatas wanted to do was nobler than what it turned out to be because of various pressures beyond the control of the Tata Group. That's how I would respond to your question.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. It was lovely hearing your views in this very special episode of the second episode called The Tata Way, wherein we are reviewing your book, Tata Living by Values.
Thank you.
We shall meet again on the third episode of season 3 of Tata Katha. Till then, thank you so much. Bye bye.